Woo!
Welcome to this episode of Comic Books and You. Today we are going to cover issue 4 of Peacemaker Tries Hard. Honestly, last week was probably one of the best weeks in comics for me. Not only did a bunch of decent to good comics come out, I got my ISOM number 2, which did great on the channel as far as the video go for my first reaction. The real surprise of the week was this particular book. The cover really doesn't give it the respect it needs. From the start, this particular series has been funny to fairly high level, I believe. But this particular issue is completely at another level in terms of humor. And this was really something that I needed at the time. And I think it is something a lot of people would appreciate if they took the time to read it. Our main character is still Peacemaker, who has the John Cena look turned up to 11. He is trying to get better. When that's the thing that we notice in this particular issue. Yes, it doesn't quite work. That's a bit of an issue for him, but he is moving in the right direction. He seems to be starting to accept the blame for what is happening and for what he is doing, and accepting that he's made mistakes. Once again, that's pretty new for Peacemaker, and that's a refreshing taste of a new character, a character that's growing throughout the series. He's still a combat machine. He's still a great fighter overall. We learned in this that he does have a lot of experience in survival in difficult environment, including the Amazonian jungle. We get more of the Red Bee. We do see that he had some trauma from his experience and his life during World War II. He is also probably on the next level in terms of animal training, because he doesn't just train bees to, help him out. He has abilities to fully trained bees, bodybuilding type, and such. He is trying to get Peacemaker to grow as well, make him a little bit less abrasive. So maybe his training abilities extend to training humans as well. And the real hero of this story is probably Michael the Bee, who does all sorts of things in this issue, which is rather hilarious for a bee to do, but that's a nice thing to see here. Our villain is apparently Snowflake, who's a psychic, like is her twin, because her twin is a non-binary. They have the ability to shoot Snowflake Shuriken, while the twin has the power to create force field. Not sure, because pretty sure those are Marvel characters. And what was that, Stan? C'est pas le bon, pas le bon bonhomme? Pas le bon. Ok, donne-moi 2 secondes, là, je vais aller faire un edit, là. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense now. Our villain is actually Snowflame. That's a bit different. Who's a cocaine-powered super villain that worships at the Church of Cocaine, because you have to push everything to 1,000 in this series. He's a smuggler working for the Brain with a base in the Amazon. He finds his life quite boring at the moment, because smuggling is rather boring when all you're running is fake shoes, fake trading cards, and such. So he is looking for his next eye outside of the massive amounts of nose candy that he takes. That made a lot more sense. Thank you, Stan. So our story at this point. So we start the story as General Immortus is enjoying a early bird special at McShoney's, and he is interrupted by Peacemaker and Red Bee, who want the location of Brain's secret hideout. Of course, Red Bee steals some of his green beans. They have at least one trait in common with General Immortus. Peacemaker basically found out where Immortus would be at the time, because he looked at a map. He found the McShoney's the closest to his hideout. Immortus, a bit angered, threatens to flatten them all with an army of robots, but Peacemaker calls his bluff by saying that Immortus wouldn't want to damage his favorite diner and have to make his own pecan pie. A lot of bluffs are called here. It's an extremely hilarious scene. You really need to read it in order to appreciate all the very subtle niceties that are there, including why Peacemaker is holding a napkin dispenser. After threatening him and getting the information pretty easily, actually, since Immortus wants to get back at the brain, Peacemaker makes a quick call to Task Force X in order to get an airplane and the necessities in order to make a strike against the brain and gets to the Amazon. Amanda Waller is not quite impressed by what he's saying, but when he says Bruce Wayne has been kidnapped, well, Amanda Waller kind of goes into overdrive and is even ready to recall the rest of the team in order to make the strike until Peacemaker slips up and reveals that he's actually looking for his dog, Bruce Wayne, and not the actual Bruce Wayne. Amanda Waller has a totally normal reaction to this and perfectly measured as well. And she tells Peacemaker that he probably should do it himself for security reasons. It would be sneakier if he does it on his own rather than with the full force of Task Force X. That's clearly what is going on here. Red B gets in contact with an old war friend, Johnny Blackhawk, who Peacemaker doesn't really trust since he is rather old. Peacemaker does agree to the team up because he doesn't really have any option. Johnny gets a plane ready and they fly away to the Amazon. While in the air, we do get a nice flashback scene of the Red B in World War II with a squad of GI trying to hunt the war wheel, where there might have been a bit of a catastrophic mishap. It's an interesting little tidbit in the middle of this book, which is mostly, like I said, comedy. This bit is actually rather serious. As they land in the Amazon, Peacemaker does admit to Blackhawk that he was wrong, and they start crossing the Amazon with Peacemaker talking of all the potential dangers of the region, including telling the Red Bee that he's wearing his anti-venom helmet because Dandradates could poison him. And he gives more and more details as to his survival skills. They meet a group of locals and are quickly captured by our mighty smuggler, Snowflame, who wants to kill them to add some spice to his life. And he's taking suggestions, and one of the kids around them tells him, hey, why don't you feed him to piranhas? Which is definitely a great idea. So Snowflame was going to get ready to do that. But Michael the Bee breaks the handcuffs because he is rather strong for a bee. And our two heroes decide, well, Red Bee will take care of the henchman while Peacemaker takes on Snowflame. Peacemaker is somewhat surprised that Snowflame's superpower come from cocaine, saying that, well, the only thing cocaine ever did to him was make him grit his teeth and fight a bear. He has some issues with the fight, but Michael brings him his gun, shoots at Snowflame, but unfortunately it has very little effect. Snowflame decided that this would be a great time for a little pick-me-up, so he goes into a small pile of Colombian powder and takes a good sniff, but Peacemaker had hidden a few poisonous frogs in the mix, and our villain inadvertently sniffs one. After their, well, I was going to say glorious, but well, after their victory, our hero asked the kid who wanted to feed them to piranhas where they need to go to find the brain's hideout. And we see a shot of Deathstroke with the brain and Mala at the end. So a lot of things happen in this story, and overall, it's all played up for comedic aspect. Really, it's one of those things that you kind of need to read because not only are the gags visual, but you've got a lot of very funny lines, very funny aphorisms. They're being silly and they're doing what they need to do for it, which is exciting, actually, in the world of comic nowadays. I am, however, not really happy with the cover. It's rather weak. Peacemaker's got a truncheon and a knife. Doesn't look super great. He should have his pistol or something like that in his hand. The orange background isn't that great. It doesn't really attract the eye because there's not a good contrast on there. Yes, Peacemaker pops out in front of it. It's not fantastic. It's not the worst cover I've ever seen. We've actually reviewed a few of those. But here, it's a cover that just doesn't do justice to the book itself and doesn't do justice to the character. Silhouettes of guns, not super great either. I mean, that would mean that a lot of people are packed in 2 square feet. I don't know. I wouldn't have bought this cover, but that's the only one my comic book shop actually received. So that's the one I got. As far as the Peritex go, we're going to go a little quick on this because, well, the first video of this week covered a DC comic already, where we already reviewed most of the ads that are in this one. The only thing we didn't really cover was the Blue Beetle final poster. I've actually seen another poster after this with a box with the Blue Beetle bug machine in it. Honestly, this is probably the best of the posters for Blue Beetles out of all the ones that I've seen, but it's still very busy, so I'm not sure it's that great. But then you look at all the other posters they've made, they're too simple. Maybe they should have found a balance between the two. I feel like the marketing for this is all over the place. They're not marketing it much right now because of the strike and everything. But even before that was happening, they weren't putting all the efforts they could into it. But I still feel like they spent more money than they should have on it. If we look at the book itself, however, it's still a black label. So good quality cover, good quality paper, and it's $1 more than your regular comic. I have a feeling that every comic should be like that across the board. I'm not the one in charge of DC and Marvel, I guess. But if enough people, start talking about it and start saying that maybe the quality should be equal to that at least, maybe one day we'll have better luck. Artistic elements for this, there's a few things we're going to talk about. I always loved how the extras looked in this particular book. They looked a little bit weird at first, but after seeing him in multiple books and things like that, the extras, the normal humans, really look like normal humans. Here we've got a waitress that's a little bit over what's going on here as General Immortus is threatening to wit old Tip. He's got a pile of $1 bill on his table, and whenever she goes by and she hasn't filled up his coffee cup, he takes $1 off. That's exactly what an awful old man would threaten people to do, even when they're supervillains. And yeah, that waitress looks perfectly normal. That's what makes that particular character great here. Same with the henchmen working for Snowflame. They look very normal, which is nice to see. It gives a big difference between our superhero, supervillain characters and the rest of the world. I kind of like where that goes overall. We get a very nice plane in this. It's a DC-1, I'm pretty sure, after looking at a few pictures here and there. Thought maybe it'd be a DC-3, but it looks a little bit small. When I say small, I mean a DC-3 is a larger plane. It's a regional, larger jet. DC-1 was more local kind of little thing. They're old planes. We don't see those flying around a whole lot anymore. DC-3s you still see in some airports for, like I said, regional. I took multiple flights from Toronto to Indianapolis in a DC-3 back in the days. Those would be great planes to use as a reference for older planes if you wanted to go there. And this is all stuff that you can easily get reference material for. So this is an easy drawing, I'll be honest here, if you have the reference material. I'm awful at drawing, I've got the shakes, but if I need to draw planes and mechanical things, if I've got the proper reference material, I should be able to do it fairly well as well if I take my time. This is very, very good overall and workable. I also enjoy how the bees are represented in this. The bee is really, really nice. We've got those bees here clapping for Michael as he's lifting, that's probably a pound weight. But I mean, for a bee, that's a lot. This is a thing that's pretty much harder than you think because as far as reference material goes, bees are probably not one of the animals you've got the most material for, especially if you start going into weird position like a bee on its back lifting a weight. That's a bit weird. Overall, I still like it here and it works really well. Same with the dendrodates, the poisonous frogs of the Amazon. They look perfectly fine. A bit simple, maybe. I'm pretty sure EVS would tell us that they're not perfect and go off the rails by why are they using frogs this way? But still, they work for what they're supposed to be. And it's nice to see that little touch of realism in visiting the Amazon in a way. Background work is also really good, especially in the jungle. It looks like they're in the jungle or they're in South America. When they're in the diner, they've got the windows, they've got the flooring, they've got everything that it needs. A few of the panels are unicolor or gradient. It's not a catastrophic issue. There's a lot of work in the backgrounds on the pages where they matter. It's overall pretty good. Snowflame is an awesome villain. Not because he is powerful, not because he is super evil, whatever. No, E ranked villains, underlings of underlings, need the spotlight every once in a while. Especially in comedy stories, that's a very good place to have them. Those types of story, they're perfect for those characters because, well, if they get beaten up, we kind of expect it. If they win, it's even funnier because it's a double joke that a C list, D list, E list villain manages to do something right for once and they won't get recognized for it. That's normally what happens. So a villain like this who has a couple appearances, haven't found many. I actually looked it up for this character, a little bit like the Demolition Team. They have barely any appearances. Whenever they show up and they go 100% right away, it is very impressive and very funny. A villain powered by cocaine is extremely hilarious right now. Would remind you of that Cocaine Bear movie that came out recently. It works for what it needs to be. A little bit like the Peacemaker TV series, this comic has also been going kind of against the woke trend that we see in many comics and many things. We could have had tons of joke about the age of the characters, and Peacemaker does make various comments about it, and he's somewhat unapologetic about it. But when he is proven wrong, he is proven wrong and he's happy to admit it. Same thing, General Immortus does make an actual ageism joke in the book, and it works perfectly well. It is a concept that needs to be worked on more, especially when you're working comedy. There's nothing more funny than people trying to restrict your speech, restrict how you act and how you think. That's what comedy should be for. That's a great way to discuss these issues without discussing these issues. And since some editors might not be the smartest cats in the room, well, some of them might not be able to catch that you're making fun of them while you're writing your book. Our intermission with Red B and World War II is pretty good. I really like the fact that we have some sort of color filter over it to make it more like those old serial comics from the era, from the World War II period and right after World War II. And it shows that Red B's life has been awful and that he had hardships in the past. And even though now he always seems to be confident and positive, there might be a reason for that because he went through more difficult things in the past. I don't know if Red B will stick around or if he'll meet an unfortunate demise by the end of this series, but it's actually an interesting character to have, in my opinion, and works better than those GSA, Justice Society of America, yeah, that they sometimes do every once in a while, that are still young and bright and everything. Having an actual old man fighting crime, helping out, I think would be an interesting character overall to work with. In a comedy way, sure. In a more serious way, might be a little bit more difficult. Don't have him fight A-list villains. Have him fight your snowflames. That's where a character like Red B would shine. The phone call to Amanda Waller is a great joke with Bruce Wayne the dog versus Bruce Wayne the millionaire. It shows how Amanda Waller is ready to do everything to help out when need be, even though she's generally depicted as a fairly nefarious individual. you have to realize that sometimes you need nefarious individuals in the government to keep things moving in the right direction. Of course, in the end, as Amanda Waller is wondering and pondering if she wants to blow up Peacemaker, it does make a sad statement onto why Task Force X will never really work. There would be better ways of controlling your staff than threatening them with a bomb in their head. This could be an entirely other discussion. I'm pretty sure the changes to Christopher Smith in this stories won't be repeated in other DC stories and other DC books, but it's nice to see him grow. In this particular book, we have a better Peacemaker ongoing here, and we have a better character. And if some of those traits where he is ready to admit failure, he is ready to admit that he might not be the best superhero, but he's the best one you got, starts dripping through the rest of DC, where he's currently acting as an American agent, more or less, it would be more interesting. We do get the great Chekhov's gun as well with the Dendridates as Peacemaker walks through the Amazon. He's got a bunch of them on his back. He's got one on his helmet. And Red Bee tells him that, yeah, you might be in trouble because you've got all sorts of them on them. Yeah, no, I've got my anti-venom helmet. I'm fine. And it gives you the payoff with the frogs actually being what defeats Snowflame rather than, a bullet or sheer violence. Great comedic elements mixed with actually good storytelling. Surprising, I know. Unlike the other books here, this is a comedy. The other book were action comics with comedic elements. This one here, there's action in it, but it's really to make everything funnier in the long run. Even the villain himself is a comedic villain. Uh, it starts strong with the humor and it keeps going strong through the entire thing. We do get that nice action scene at the end between Snowflame and Peacemaker and a little bit with the henchman and Red Bee, but even that is somewhat comedic with the henchman basically saying like, yeah, are you really scared of a bee? You live in the Amazon. And then they start being scared of the bee because Michael is awesome, etc. Another thing here that's actually pretty nice and it works really well as a comedy, every character gets their own time to shine. Waller gets 2 pages of her being over the top and unfortunately realizing that Peacemaker's still an idiot. Red Bee has his time to shine and that great intermission with World War II. Blackhawk, I mean, old man, he gets basically 1 or 2 panels where it's really funny, but they're extensively funny. Snowflame overall, Immortus, even the Bee has their time to shine. This is how a good comedy comic would work. I don't know if it'll follow up in issue 5 with something similar or go back to an action style comic. Even if it goes back to the action style comic we've seen from the 3 previous books, they know what they're doing. I honestly have not laughed that hard in a long time. The bit with Snowflame took it over the top. It was a glorious Doom Rider Warhammer 40K kind of joke. The Immortus bit at the start was a great setup and payoff with quick jokes based on the age of Immortus and how he wants to behave. This was, like I said, the surprise element of last week. I saw my number 2. I was pretty sure it was going to be good. It was actually great, so I was really happy. This, I knew it was going to be good. When I got it, it was great, which is even more surprising because DC, they bat 500 still, most of the time on their books. There's 2 books left in this. We see Deathstroke as a clone at the end of this one, more than likely. Things will keep escalating. Things will keep getting completely crazy. I can't wait for the next book. What I'm going to do, more than likely, is dig up I Ate This Place, because Kyle Starks, the author of this, is really funny based on those books, and I expect a series written by him to actually work fairly well. Those books seem to be a little bit hard to get, at least from my standard online retailer. So we'll have to see how I can get my hands on it. This is the kind of book that DC should be doing more of. Just like Wildcats that I've been reading and haven't been reviewing lately, but it's still been ongoing as fairly good to really good issues over issues. Those are the kind of books DC really needs to focus on. Yes, your Batman, your Superman, they're going to keep making money. Those work. But even those books, they should start reverting them more to maybe not this style of extreme comedy, but something a little bit more light-hearted. Having gone through some recent Batman stuff recently, through Brave and the Bold, not a huge fan of how they behave every once in a while. Hopefully, we get a bit of a refresh if DC is smart. That's the big point here. So, I thank you very much for listening to me today. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day. Keep on reading comic, keep on enjoying them. I'll keep analyzing them and reviewing them. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.